Okay, listen. You're not going to believe this. At my school, there was a rule, a racist rule that nobody talked about, but everyone obeyed. Students were separated by race, not in history books, not in old documentaries. In real life, if you sat with the wrong group, you were publicly embarrassed and forced to move. But then one student said, no. And what happened next shook the entire school to its core. Have you ever heard a rule that didn't make any sense at all? But everyone followed it anyway? Not because they agreed with it, not because it was logical, but simply because that's how things have always been. Yeah, let's go back. Back to the halls of Willow Creek High. Now, on the outside, Willow Creek looked like the kind of school you'd see in a brochure. Shiny polished floors reflecting the ceiling. Lights. Teachers smiling as if they were all cast for a commercial. Posters on the walls, talking about unity, respect, and we are one family in bright, friendly colors. Everything looked perfect. But if you've ever seen a movie set, you know something can look perfect from the front, while the cracks hide behind the curtain. And the biggest crack at Willow Creek was something everyone called the table rule. The cafeteria had 4 main tables, just 4, but they might as well have been walls. Invisible walls. Walls nobody questioned. The white students sat at the tables near the big bright windows, where the sunlight poured in. The Asian students sat on the left side of the room. Neat rows, quiet conversations. The black students sat on the right side. Bright laughter, loud energy, but boxed in. And the Hispanic students? They sat all the way in the back, the farthest spot from the windows, almost like they were purposely pushed out of sight. But here's the thing. This rule was never written. Not in the school handbook, not on any notice board. Nobody ever said it officially. Yet, every teacher, every lunch lady, every hall monitor enforced it with full authority. Try to sit anywhere other than your section, and someone would step in. Fast. Not rude. Not shouting. Just firm, like they were correcting a child who made an innocent mistake. Hey, you don't belong there. Move. 6 words. 6 words that carried the weight of generations of prejudice. Disguised as routine, and the worst part? Everyone acted like it was normal. No one questioned it. No one pushed back. Students didn't even think about mixing, not because they didn't want to, but because the school had trained them to believe. This is just how things are. So imagine being 14, 15, 16 years old, and being told, every single day without anyone actually saying it, that who you are decides where you're allowed to exist. Where you can sit, where you can laugh, who you're allowed to be friends with, not based on personality, not based on interests, not based on who you are on the inside, but based on your skin. And nobody said anything. Nobody challenged it. Because when something unfair becomes routine, people stop noticing it's unfair. Until one day, someone did. But we'll get to that. For now, I just want you to understand one thing. Willow Creek High didn't have a racist rule on paper. It had something worse. A racist rule in everyone's mind. And that is harder to erase. Everything changed the day Liam Parker walked into Willow Creek High. He wasn't loud. He wasn't rebellious. He wasn't the kind of kid who tried to stand out. Liam was the quiet type, the kind of person who usually blended into the background, soft-spoken, thoughtful, always carrying a book like it was part of him. But there was something different about him, something nobody could categorize neatly. Liam was biracial. His mother was black, his father was white, and his face carried features from both, skin a shade that didn't fit any of the school's assigned sections, and that was going to become a problem. It was his first day, and like any new student, he didn't know the rules, especially the one everyone followed, but no one spoke about. So when lunchtime came, Liam did what any normal student would do. He looked for a place that felt bright and welcoming. He walked straight to the table near the windows, the front tables, where the sunlight hit softly across the cafeteria. He set down his tray, took a seat, and gave a small, polite smile to the students already sitting there. Instantly, you could feel the air change. Conversations didn't just quiet, they stopped. Forks froze halfway to mouths. Eyes darted. Someone shifted uncomfortably. Finally, a girl with blonde hair leaned in, her voice low. like she didn't want to embarrass him, but also like she needed to correct him. This is the white table. Not angry. Not rude, just matter of fact, like saying, this is where the forks go, this is where the spoons go. But Liam wasn't confused the way she expected. He blinked once and replied gently, "So? Aren't we all students here?" Silence, like the room itself was holding its breath. And then she appeared, the lunch monitor, not running, not rushing, but walking with the confidence of someone who had done this 1,000 times. She didn't ask questions. She didn't try to understand. She just pointed, not at him, but at his tray, as if the tray itself was the problem. Her voice was loud enough that even tables across the room heard it. "Your section is over there." She pointed to the black students' table. Every head in the cafeteria turned, not because they agreed, not because they were judging, but because this was the moment. The moment where someone either obeyed or disrupted the system. Liam looked at her, then at the table, then at the people watching him. He didn't argue. He didn't fight. He simply picked up his tray and walked to the table he was told to sit. But what happened later? That was the real moment. During his next class, Liam raised his hand, not aggressively, not dramatically, just calmly. "Why is the cafeteria separated like that?" "Who made that rule?" The teacher froze, not because she didn't know the answer, but because she realized she had never asked that question either. Students shifted in their seats. Nobody spoke because the truth was simple. Nobody made the rule. It made itself, and everyone just allowed it to live. But for the first time, someone wasn't willing to let it stay quiet. Liam had asked the question that poked the heart of everything. Why? And once why enters the room, nothing stays the same. The principal's office at Willow Creek High was one of those rooms that tried very hard to be comforting. Soft yellow walls, a few inspirational posters, a plant that looked half alive, and a bowl of mints on the desk. But the atmosphere that day, heavy, still, uncomfortable. Liam sat in the chair across from the principal, sitting up straight, no shaking hands, no nervous tapping, just calm, but not silent. Across from him, Principal Harris, a man in his late 50s with tired eyes and a reputation for avoiding drama, folded his hands together. His expression was unreadable, like he already knew what was coming, and Liam began to speak. He didn't yell, he didn't accuse, he simply explained every detail. How students were separated by skin color at lunch. How teachers and staff didn't just allow it, they enforced it. How nobody questioned it, because questioning it meant being alone. How one unspoken rule managed to shape the entire school culture. He spoke clearly, respectfully, but with a kind of honesty that didn't leave space for excuses. Principal Harris listened from beginning to end, not interrupting once. But when Liam finished, the principal leaned back in his chair and let out a long, tired sigh, the kind of sigh that comes from someone who has seen a problem but chosen to look away for years. "This tradition has been part of the school for a long time," he said, softly. "It prevents conflict." There it was, the reason, the justification, the excuse. Liam didn't pause, didn't hesitate, didn't soften his voice. "No," he said, "it creates division." The words hung there, like a match dropped in a dry forest. The room felt smaller, quieter, the air thicker. For a moment, Principal Harris didn't respond. He just looked at Liam, really looked, maybe, for the first time, looked at a student who wasn't afraid to be the one who asked the question nobody else dared to ask. And something changed, not dramatically, not instantly, but a shift, crack in the wall of silence. The announcement the next morning, the loudspeaker crackled. Louder than usual, students looked up, teachers paused mid-sentence. Principal Harris's voice came through, steady but different, like he was choosing every word carefully. "Starting today," he said, "students may sit wherever they like in the cafeteria. No staff member is to enforce any kind of seating division. Our school encourages unity and inclusion. No applause, no cheering, just silence, not a bad silence, an unsure silence." The first day of change, the cafeteria that day felt unfamiliar. Some students froze at the entrance, not knowing where to go. Some sat in their usual spots, afraid to break patterns. But then, one student moved, then another, a black student sat beside a white student. A week later, the cafeteria at Willow Creek High buzzed with its usual lunchtime rhythm. Trays clattering, laughter echoing, the low hum of conversations broken only by the squeak of sneakers on polished floors. Everything was the same, predictable, divided. But Liam Parker had spent that week thinking, and the more he thought about it, the more it burned inside him. This invisible rule that told people where they could or couldn't sit, like they were pieces on a chessboard. That day, he walked in through the cafeteria doors holding his tray. Same plain lunch, same nervous energy in the air. But his eyes, they were steady, focused. He scanned the room, saw the usual order of things, the white table by the windows, the black table to the right, the Asian and Hispanic sections filling the corners, and then he did something nobody expected. He walked right past all of them and sat in the middle. No group, no label, no side. The sound of chatter slowly died down. Plastic forks froze mid-air. It felt like the whole room held its breath, waiting for what would happen next. At first, nobody dared move. Everyone just stared, not in anger, not even in judgment, but in pure shock. And then something amazing happened. From the very back, a girl at the Hispanic table stood up. She hesitated for a second, her friends whispering, unsure if she was crazy or brave. And then she picked up her tray and walked toward Liam. No words, no drama, just quiet courage. Two boys from the Asian table followed, exchanging nervous glances before joining them. Then a white kid from the window table looked around, shrugged like he was done pretending, and walked over too. Within minutes, 11 students sat together, laughing softly, awkwardly at first, but then naturally, comfortably, different faces, different accents, different stories, now sharing fries and soda like they'd been friends for years. It wasn't rebellion. It was humanity. And of course, it didn't take long for the lunch monitor to notice. Her heels clicked sharply against the tile as she stormed across the room, her face flushed with authority. When she stopped beside the group, her voice cut through the air. You all need to return to your assigned areas, now. The room went silent again. But this time, Liam didn't move. He didn't even flinch. He looked up at her calmly and said, "Show me where that rule is written." For the first time, she didn't have a response. Her lips parted. But no words came, because there was nothing to show. No page. No law, just tradition. Passed down quietly. Unchallenged. Accepted. She cleared her throat, trying to regain control. "I'll call the principal," she snapped. Liam nodded. "Good," he said simply. "Let's talk to him." That single moment, one student refusing to move, echoed louder than any shout ever could. For the first time in Willow Creek's history, the rule that everyone followed without question was about to be questioned out loud. And once a question is spoken, it can't be taken back. Years passed. Students graduated. New students enrolled. Teachers retired. Classrooms changed. Walls were repainted. But one thing at Willow Creek High never faded from memory. Not the championship football season. Not the science fair winner. Not the prom king or queen. People remembered the table rule. And more importantly, they remembered the day it ended. Not because it was loud. Not because it caused chaos. Not because it turned into some big dramatic protest, but because a quiet student, one who never tried to draw attention to himself, did something simple, something powerful, something nobody else had dared to do. He asked a question, and that question was, why do we do things this way? If it hurts people, it sounds small, right? Just a sentence, just words, but sometimes the smallest questions are the ones that shake the ground the hardest, because up until Liam spoke, everyone at Willow Creek High had learned how to look past wrong things, how to say, that's just how it is. That's the way things work. Here, better not cause trouble. They didn't like the rule. They didn't support it, but they obeyed it, and that's how unfairness grows, not just through force, but through silence. Liam didn't shout. He didn't argue. He didn't demand that everyone change overnight. All he did was look at something wrong, something everyone had accepted as normal, and say, no, this isn't right. And once one person says it, others start to see it too. That is the part people remember, not the rule itself, But the moment it was finally seen for what it was, wrong, unjust, cruel, and unnecessary. Years later, when former students talk about Willow Creek High, they'll tell the story differently. They'll say, "I went to a school where we sat separately at lunch." Then they'll pause. "And there was this kid, Liam. He stopped it." They'll say his name with a kind of quiet respect, not because he was a hero in the loud sense, not because he led a grand movement, but because he did what most people never do. He questioned the invisible rules, the silent expectations, the "this is just how we do things," beliefs that shape entire communities. And that's a lesson that outlives classrooms, hallways, and high school years. Because the truth is, every school, every town, every workplace, every friend group has a rule like this. Maybe it's not about race, maybe it's about money, or appearance, or popularity, or who gets included, or who gets ignored. Rule that nobody speaks aloud, but everyone follows until someone doesn't. And change doesn't always look like revolution. Sometimes it looks like a hand raised in a quiet room, a voice asking a simple question. Sometimes the person who changes everything isn't the loudest. Sometimes it's the one who simply says, "This isn't right, and we can do better." And that lesson, the courage to question the wrong, the courage to choose fairness over comfort, the courage to act even when your voice shakes, stays forever. The rule ended that day, but its echo stayed. Years later, people still talk about Willow Creek High, not because of its grades or trophies or speeches, but because one quiet student asked the question no one else did. Why? No anger, no shouting, just a question. And that was enough to make a system built on silence finally crumble. Because that's how real change begins. Not with power, not with privilege, but with courage. Every school, every town, every workplace has its own table rule. Maybe it's not written down. Maybe it hides behind fake smiles and polite words, but it's there. And all it takes is one person to notice it, to name it, to say, "This isn't right. We can do better."